and they're going to get a conversation going about Everton, the Everton days, lots to talk about. Who's going to start it off? Over to you. Go for it, Firoz.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for having us here. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. I am proud to be in the company of Uncle Abu Natti and Mohamed Saeed Patel. Mohamed Saeed Patel, my class friend and brother for so long, and Uncle Abu, my elder, and our neighbor in Everton. When I say neighbor, they were like half a kilometer away, but they were the next family that was close to us. And alhamdulillah, we forged a very good relationship. My late father had a good relationship with them, and we went on after that as well. Uncle Abu, thank you for being here. We'd like you to say a few words, and probably let's start the discussion.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and we're recalling all our Everton experiences. And one thing that really I remember so well is Everton in the late 70s and early 80s. We used to leave our house open the whole night. We never used to close the windows. And our cold drink bottles and everything was out. And we had such good relation with our African brothers. And that's the biggest memory I have. Let me tell you that it was before the news South Africa, and today we can't even, they can even steal your milk from your tea.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure being here, Yunus, for having invited us. And as our brother Firoz says that, we're going to recall our experiences in Everton. It was really, Everton was a wonderful place. There's one difference between Everton and if you look at maybe top location, look at Vereniging Town, steelworks where they used to stay. In Everton, nobody stayed next to each other. Our homes were very scattered. Our nearest neighbor, I'm going to correct Firoz here, our nearest neighbor was the Bob family, Uncle Bob. We used to stay next to each other. And then around, we used to go down the road, and about 1.5 kilometers away, we used to have Everton Boundary Store. That was your shop's name. And Uncle Abu Bakr and his brother, late brother Dawood were there. And as you turn right, you're going now on the Golden Highway. Then you'll find Salujis, Firoz and them were there. After Salujis used to be the Patels. And then you used to go right up, and then you used to find Wilberforce, you used to find the Jadas. And the Varachas also. Yes. So, and then you used to go on, I think it was called Central Road. Then the Nutties used to be on the Central Roads. And as you would go down then, memory is failing me now. Yeah. I think, then Dr. Patel and them used to live next to the school. Yeah. If you remember, we had the Munshis? Munshis, they used to...
Yeah,
if you guys know Coogan peanuts, it started very, very humbly. We remember we used to go to school and we used to go into their yard. I was in grade 1. I think Firoz started grade 1 in Vereniging. I started grade 1 in Everton.
We started together.
In Everton, yeah. And we used to go and buy peanuts, and I think it was 1 cent for a packet of peanuts. And the old lady, the mother, used to sit around the primer stove. I don't know if anybody, you guys recall what the primer stove was, And on the primer stove, she used to fry the peanuts, put a little bit of salt, and I'm telling you, it was the nicest peanuts we ever ate. So yes, Everton, we've got very fond memories. And there is one thing I want to tell you people about Everton. I think 80 to 90% of Everton residents can converse in Sesotho with anybody. In fact, we're going to give it a try. Let's make it a little bit light-hearted. Abu Bakr, Ligai. Likai.
Ano kiteng kau ano kai mun.
Wana jua de udula kai wana isu. Udula kai.
Sikit dula ko anu jo.
Udula kai.
Kidula limbu rakak.
So this is a great advantage for us as Everton people that we speak Sutu, and many of us also speak Zulu quite fluently. Yes, so I'll now ask Firoz Bhai to say something.
No, regarding Everton, maybe we I don't know how much time we have, but I want to just touch on a few things. Uncle Abu mentioned the fact that we lived really peacefully in Everton. It was a very comfortable environment. We lived in some places where there was a single wall separating different races, and we had no problem. Ismail Bhai Mayat lived next to an African family, and we had a wonderful environment. It never was a problem. That kind of relationship remained, so much so that we even had different organizations, and because the main group of businessmen were Indian, we had an organization called the Everton Social Club, which actually focused on uplifting the so-called African community, the black community. We had a system, and again, you know, when you talk of the Everton Social Club, you can't forget people like Daya Bhai Gopal, Ismail Bhai Mayat, Abdul Samad Nana, Ali Bhai Suji. These were the people that all worked together, and we had what was then, I'm talking now in the late 70s, late 60s, 70s, 74, 75, we used to have affirmative action where we raised money from the Indian businessmen to help local schools. We bought desks, we bought books for them, and we also had a bursary scheme. And that bursary scheme was exclusive for African people. We raised the money from the Indian businessmen, and if an Indian child came, we said, you go and find the Indian supporter. We couldn't support them. That was our goal, and we, alhamdulillah, we did very well with that. We had massive files of a lot of people that we assisted. Unfortunately, when the riots took place, all that disappeared.
You know, if there's something about Everton that was also unique, was that though we were so scattered, we stayed so far from each other, the unity we had was phenomenal. And I mean, I can recall as a child, our parents at night used to visit each other. And every night one friend would be visiting the other friend. And these type of things, now that we are in Roshnee, yes, we have a very united community, but I think it is something that's missing in our lives.
I remember particularly Mohamed Saeed, your father, who was a big person, a tall, long person, and a big, strong person. And I remember him coming to our yard. We had a long yard. The house was in the back. You could go from the shop into the house. But I remember distinctly he would come, park the car in front, go around the shop, go to the house, and he would say, Aisa, kem che, Aisa?
100%, yes.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So we're fortunate to have gone through those days. Everton was really a wonderful place. I remember not long before the riots, it was about 3 or 4 weeks before the riots, I had a visitor from Legacies who saw Everton as an opportunity for business, and he asked me if he could buy a business in Everton. And I said, you know what, our people are so comfortable, I don't think you're going to be able to buy a business here in Everton. The people won't sell you a business, you may have to start on your own. And 3 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later, we were burned down. And I called him and I said, well, now there are many businesses for you to buy.
Firoz, and another thing is that the idea of the Roshnee Islamic School was actually found in Everton, was established from Everton. And I recall, maybe I may just say this, that in the first couple of meetings that we had, the day that we lost late Ali Bhai, yourself, Ali Bhai and Abdul Samad were in the car together on the way to Roshnee to come and discuss the establishment of the Islamic school, and that's when the action took place.
It's a little bit different. We were having an issue with some of the children going to these so-called white schools, and they were being taught, they were Christian schools, and they were being taught Christian values, and we basically had to just warn the parents. And this was our second trip coming through, and you know, fortunately, sadly, but normally I would be the driver of the car. Marhum Ali Bhai and Abdul Samad would be sitting. That day, Marhum Ali Bhai fetched us, and I'm just pleased that I wasn't driving that day because it was no fault of his when the accident took place. A chap came and he didn't stop at the stop sign and knocked us. I would have been terribly, if that had happened and I was a driver, I would have been terribly disappointed. So to this day, I thank Almighty that I wasn't the driver that day. But we were coming for that work, and I say, Alhamdulillah, it was a noble effort by Marhum Ali Bhai, and he went in the cause of this type of work. We had what was also the Everton Social Club, and I can say that I started as a youngster in the social club and the Everton Muslim Society then, and I worked with Uncle Abu Bakr. He was our elder, and there were Uncle Abdullah Natti and all of them elders, and I stayed there as a lighty. I learned a lot from them, alhamdulillah. And you know, if I go back to the history of the Everton Muslim Society, I'm talking of the generation before ours, when our parents weren't all educated, but they knew the need for education and they knew the need for a madrasa. So they actually brought Hafizah from India to come and teach in Roshnee, in Everton.
Yeah.
And we had this Everton Muslim Society, but they weren't all wise enough to keep records and books and things like that. So Daya Bhai, who was not Muslim, acted as the secretary for the Everton Muslim Society. I remember that, I'm being told, this is what I've heard as well, that there was a situation where Daya Bhai would be in a meeting and they were planning a follow-up meeting and they suggested a date. And they were all planning on that date, and Daya Bhai would say, Nai, Ismail Bhai, Malagya, Eid is on that day, Eid may be on that day. On another occasion, he said, it's Ramzan, I don't think we can have a meeting then. Daya Bhai would be so aware of all those things. It was unbelievable. He had a tremendous memory, and he was a good contributor to our community. You know, he played his role till the end. We had a situation where we came to Roshnee. We came the first year, we were the first matriculants, and we came to the school. The school still didn't have textbooks. We were at a loss. We didn't have enough teachers. And Daya Bhai, Ismail Bhai Mayat got together and they went and they bought textbooks for us. They bought these expensive textbooks, but unfortunately they weren't for this syllabus. But they went out of the way. They made sure we had tuition. They made sure that even for sport, they arranged for a professional coach to come and teach us cricket. These were men of great they legends. You know, they set the example. Marhum Ali Bhai was one of those people that assisted us. Abdul Samad, it goes without saying, his contribution has been immense to all of us. You know.
Yeah,
no, Abdul Samad was outstanding, hey? But carry on.
And then I remember the Cambridge Football Club. We used to play cricket under Cambridge and soccer under Cambridge Football Club. And Daya Bhai was one of our, you know, yeah. And then in the earlier days, we used to travel from Everton by bicycle to go and play cricket or soccer in Vereeniging, top location.
Yes.
And that was the old days. And then, you know, when we were young, we were very hot-headed.
Yes.
And then, you know, in the shop, in the shop sometimes we used to lose our head. And that's what African lady told me. Ako mamele hantle, remember well that mutu ki mutu kabatu. Literally means you are a person, you're a person because of people. And that I can never forget. You know.
Yeah, the Sutu saying is mutu ki mutu kabatu.
Yeah, mutu ki mutu kabatu.
Yeah. So Everton has many memories for us. We obviously didn't have schooling in high school. We had to travel from Everton. Many of our those before us had to go to Legacies. Others even went further. Others stayed in towns like Stenerton and hostels, Mias Farm and so forth to get education. We traveled, I remember, from Everton to Legacies for some years. And it wasn't easy. We traveled in a vehicle, I remember, that was used over the weekend for selling sheep. And on Monday morning, that same vehicle would have a canopy on, and we had to walk into this thing, and there was goat dung on the floor. But that was life, and that we enjoyed that, you know. We enjoyed it. It was quite nice. It was tough getting there. It was tough coming back, and we still had to go to madrasa after that. But alhamdulillah, we made it through, and we were thankful for that.
Firoz, if you remember, we used to go from Everton to Vereniging School. We used to travel with Mr. Keda, and some of us, Mr. Fanikerk. I don't know if you remember Mr. Fanikerk.
Yes,
Excellent human being.
Yes.
And from there, we used to come back to Everton and go to madrasa at the Everton school.
That's right.
It was a full day. You leave at 6 in the morning, and by the time you get home, it's 5, 6 in the evening already. In winter, it used to be dark when we get home. So things were tough in those days, but the truth of the matter, it was fun.
Yeah, and I remember one incident. My father bought me a bicycle to travel from Wilberforce to Central. That was about 5 kilometers. And then one night I was supposed to bring the bicycle into the house, and I forgot, and the bicycle was stolen. So that day I had to walk from Wilberforce to Central. It was around 5, walking and coming back walking.
No replacement bicycle for you.
And the memories of playing soccer in Vereniging, going with your bicycle, or Bhai Surti, Amadi Surti. We all used to travel together by bicycle early in the morning, play soccer, and ride back from Vereniging to Everton by bicycle.
I think in Everton, you know, you're talking of the relative safety that we lived in and so forth. And in 1967, if you recall, my brother Yusuf was shot dead. That was the first, can I say, a violent crime that took place in Everton.
That's right, very true.
And it was, I remember the funeral, it was a huge funeral because it's something that was unheard of at that time.
Right,
Everton, you know, has many memories. So I remember I was mollycoddled. My mother really spoiled me. So when I had to go to school the first year, it was quite a thing going to. And I remember going to madrasa, coming out of madrasa, your parents had to come and fetch you. And I was first of all, everything was very alien to me. I was lost. And when I got out of the gates, all the people had left and I was left behind. My father hadn't yet sent a car. And I was crying. The African lady across the road, out of her mercy, she picked me up. She sat me down, gave me something to drink, and I didn't know her from anywhere. And she looked after me until the car came, and she was very cross when the person came to fetch me. How can you leave this youngster till so late? You know, there was this feeling amongst our community that was just something special.
No, that's true.
And
you know, I just want to bring about something that, you know, Raj was sitting here and he spoke about today's generation as far as education goes and the generation that we were, you know, the earlier generation. And there's one thing that stands out. We grew up in relative difficulty, and we understood the value of education. We understood the value of even our businesses, those who went into business. Today's youngsters, they have such a comfort zone that they appreciate nothing. So an appeal is made to our youngsters. You guys have to catch a wake up, man.
Yeah. No, I think what was discussed earlier as well was about discipline. And they were saying that, Mr. Cheney, Bobby was saying that it's different now. You can't discipline your children like in the old days. To an extent, we must understand the situation has changed. But I think what is also true, which Harun alluded to, is that perhaps we've abdicated in terms of responsibility. And now that we're still in education and we're with the school, I'm convinced that a lot of parents have spoiled their children to the extent that they reach a stage when those children are no longer, they're not able to discipline them anymore. And then they become a big problem, not only to the parents, but they also become a big problem to the school. Today, unfortunately, a lot of our teachers have to do the work that parents had to do at home in terms of value systems, in terms of respect, in terms of simple cultural values. They have to be taught about greeting people, saying thank you. All those things have to be taught at school, and they make the work of the teachers very difficult. The other thing they also alluded to was that parents in those old days trusted the teachers to do what they had to do to teach them. And sometimes those days, obviously there was corporal punishment. There weren't too many questions about why you got a hiding. You had a situation where people were perhaps they got a hiding. They would be very quiet. If they go home, if they had to say that to the parents that they got a hiding today, the chances are they would get hiding again. So these days, unfortunately, we have a situation where the slightest concern that parent has, if a child raises something, parents come running to the school and they come and tell the teachers. In fact, they want to have a one-on-one against the teachers. They want to take the teachers to task, and I think they're destroying their children. I've seen that over and over where parents have done that. We've seen the children 10 years later, unfortunately, they've let their families down. I still think the parents have a very, very crucial role to play. They need to take responsibility for their children. They've got to set responsibilities, and they've got to set the boundaries and the rules on which they should do things. They can't be doing things without that.
Yeah, I remember when we went to school, we used to get a hiding regularly. And when we went to complain to our father that the teacher hit me, we got another hiding.
There's just an announcement to be made. We have, there's a wedding band that's gone missing. Someone's lost a wedding band. If found, please return to the book sales desk. A wedding band that's lost. If found, please return to the book sales desk.
Okay.
Yeah. And the mullah, and the mabla. Yeah. Everton also had a lot of sportsmen who probably weren't. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. But they fought their games. They played hard, and they played. I remember many times against players that were provincial players, and they outdid them simply because of their fight and the ability to take on whatever challenge they were. They didn't know who were the provincial players. They would play them on as if they were just ordinary players, and they really did well, whether it was soccer or cricket. Ibrahim?
If you don't mind, if you can give me the opportunity of just sharing some good memories of Everton.
Yes, you're welcome.
One of those is we looked up to people like Ali Bhai Suji, Uncle Samad Nana. And one of the things I remember very distinctly is that the madrasa that we went to was far ahead of its time.
Yes.
I learned tajweed at the madrasa. I learned Arabic at madrasa.
Alhamdulillah.
And that was in 1960s, early 70s.
Yeah,
when
late
that
60s, early 70s.
When the curriculum was so progressive, so visionary, and if I remember correctly, the LMS syllabus was actually developed from the Everton Madrasa syllabus.
The syllabus was developed late Yusuf Suji, who was with Ali Bhai and Marhum Ali Bhai and Hafiz Suji as well. They were with us, and they developed a syllabus on which we were taught. And it was, you're quite correct when you say it was radical. We had that time madrasas where we taught Gujarati and we were taught Urdu. And our Marhum Ismail Bhai Nana, Ismail Bhai Mayat, and a few of them decided that they need to change from Urdu to Arabic because of the Quran and because that's more important. And so they decided to go with this Ikramuddin's syllabus, which was radical. And you had to get rid of the old Gujarati and the old Urdu, and they started something very new. And we were probably the guinea pigs at that time, alhamdulillah. Yes. And I say this to this day, we're still debating, unfortunately, at the school, whether Arabic should be taught as a subject in a Muslim school. And I say to them that the little bit of Arabic that I learned and that I know, I've learned from madrasa, which was so elementary, so elementary. And these pioneers, Marhum Ali Bhai, Mr. Hafizab Hafizi, all they took it upon themselves to take this on, and it was really a challenge. Alhamdulillah.
Firoz, you say you learned a bit of Arabic through the experience, but on a lighter note, what do you remember from the Gujarati? What did you learn in Gujarati?
Kanekano ka.
Kaneke ini ka, kanekano ka, kane raswai ki.
But it would have been good if we had another language. There's nothing wrong with that. But it was something that it took a lot of time, and the madrasa time was limited, and they had to go into Arabic.
Just one thing, if I may, by Firoz, with regard to that syllabus and madrasa education I received. When I came out of madrasa, I had this tremendous urge to learn Arabic. Because of that basis that was created in madrasa. Unfortunately, I couldn't take it further, and I didn't take it further. Right, yeah. But just coming out of that environment with this urge to want to learn Arabic.
Alhamdulillah, yes. So I think maybe that's where I get it from as well, because I've been trying to push this all along. Yes. I've always been getting a little bit walls, but Alhamdulillah. And nobody, you want to say something?
You want to know that how did the top location? You were from top location.
My father started top.
Yes, I know.
But I think it's for a separate one.
Yeah.
Was the first, Suleiman Mamla was the first house built in top location. It was not top location. It was named Asiatic Bazaar.
Asiatic Bazaar, yes.
And opposite was the old Shopwell, and the colors were the Cape Stains.
That's right, I remember. I was a little kid then, yes, I remember. I remember for Eid, we used to come from Evaton to Verenigen, and from there on the way back, we stopped at your house and we had milk and that at your place.
Yes, we did. We never had the keys for the front door.
Yes.
Yeah. And all the youngsters come from Johannesburg. And it's like Saturday night.
But that we had in Everton as well. Everton, I remember the Karani home. We had a door there that didn't have a lock. They had a nail. When they went in, they took the nail and just bent it over, and that was the door. That is how it was. The floor was made of the manure, and that's how we lived. That's how we lived. I remember traveling from Everton to Verenigen to school. Mr. Kader was our principal, and we used to travel with him. Mr. Hammond and Mr. Kader used to have it a little bit out. They weren't on the best of terms. So when we got to school and it was late, we got late because the principal had come late. When we got into the class, we got a good hiding, irrespective of the fact that we were brought in by the principal. And you couldn't complain.
Yes, he also gave me hiding.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the clubhouse in Everton.
Yes.
We used to have a professional-sized billiard table there.
Yes.
And myself and my cousins, we used to go and play billiards there, and we used to love billiards.
Yes.
We developed a love for billiards. And I think every Friday night, every Saturday night, we used to show a movie at the clubhouse.
Yes, so we had this Everton Social Club, and as I said, this social club was focused on raising the standard or the facilities for the so-called African community. So we had a weekly film shown, and we raised money with that. Mohamed Mayat used to be one of the guys that would source the films from Johannesburg, yeah. So we would come, pick up the big reel of films, come back and show. And I remember on one occasion, we took a film that was called Marooned. Marooned was about a spaceship that had got untangled from its thing, and it was just orbiting all the time. And it was silent for a little while. Just see this thing marooned all the time. The community that we were catering for needed Skopskiet and Donner. They didn't want this thing that was just... So this thing was going on for a little while, and you could take it no longer. And it became very unruly. We will now remember this place where we were having, it was the crippled care. That is where we had this thing. And it was in the heart of the township, and we a few Indians sort of doing this thing, and the people were becoming restless to the extent that they started taking the bottles and that, and every time the spaceship came on the screen, they threw the bottles at it, and we were thinking that this is a riot, we're going to have a problem. But that is how it was, and we raised that money for the community as well. We were fortunate to be involved in all that, you know. Yes. Yeah, no, alhamdulillah. So yeah, that's basically where it is with Everton. It was a good time. I think we have many memories. I remember there was a time my father was telling me that there were times when you had a break-in in the shops, word would get around, and Patel's had a break-in, and someone ran down to our shop, which was now maybe nearly half a kilometer away, and said they had a problem. So my father would get into this truck. Those days, the truck was his vehicle. They would go in front of Patel's yard, turn the truck around. Behind the cab, they had guns. Guns were illegal, and they would be shooting at the shop until the crooks would run away. But that is how it was. That they did that in those times to support one another. You were talking of the unity in Everton. It was unbelievable, the unity we had in this town. Regarding the situation of Eid, Eid was a day that Marhum Ali Bhai and a few of them particularly said Eid is a day of celebration. If we don't sacrifice on that day, it's a day of sacrifice. If you don't sacrifice on Eid day, which other day are you going to sacrifice? And I remembered Eid was a day or two before Christmas, 23rd or 24th of December. And just about every shop that day closed. There was one or two shops, we're not going to mention names, that didn't close, but the majority, and they couldn't care about the one or two that didn't close. Just about every shop on that day closed. That was the unity we had. It was unbelievable that we were staying apart. We were sometimes not all of the same garment, sometimes not even the same race. Mr. Keida and them, they were Malay. But there just was no differences. It was too nice. We had this billiards and that here behind Patel's. And every Friday night, Saturday, the people would come there and they would be playing billiards. The elders, Mr. Keida, Dr. Patel, all those people. In fact, it was quite a thing, Again, another thing we need to mention about Everton, it was one of the very, very hot spots for the politics of the time. Our town used to have various political meetings. I remember as a little boy accompanying my father, and again it was supported by our community very widely. People went there. We had these informers, whites, who would come, take down the registration numbers of the cars, and they would want to report, and then Monday or Tuesday you would be approached and they want to know what were you doing there. It was quite a thing that time. We had, we had some great people in our town, Dayabai,
Solibai
Natti, and also Bob Asmal. So Uncle Bob Asmal and them were like fearless people. They didn't worry, they didn't have the education, but they were committed to the cause. So some of our youngsters went there and they said, Uncle Bob, man, we want to join this thing. So Uncle Bob said, no problem. There's this bridge here, there's a residential bridge, let's go and bomb it. This guy's got cold feet, they ran away.
Yeah, I recall, as a 6-year-old or 7-year-old boy, marching in Everton. I remember this was the Congress March.
Yes.
And we marched past, I think, where Surtis used to stay. And then I think the Chinaman's place was, and we marched, and then there was a policeman called Barnat. And they came with some box and they hit us. I recall that. But one of the memories that I have as a little child is the day of Sharpeville. I don't know, Abu Bakr, you may remember that on the day of Sharpeville, when all this was happening, these planes were flying over.
Right above us.
And as a small child, 5 or 6 years old, I was hiding away under the table and I was telling my mother that these people are going to kill us. Yes. So we have got tremendous memories of it here.
No, it's quite a thing. Everton had some real stories to tell. I think, it was also the place where Mandela And
Robert Sibukwe.
they used to come there. They used to have their meetings there. It was one of the places that they met. You know. So it played its part. You know. Alhamdulillah.
I mean, during the time of the bus riots, was the bus riots or the bus?
Azikwela.
That's right. I mean, I recall also as a small child that all these ladies, you know, the African ladies used to come and sleep on our stoop because of fear. And I remember our parents used to have these, we used to call them the donkey blankets, and they used to cover themselves with the donkey blankets and sleep there. So it's, yeah, time has passed.
During the 1976 riots, Mohamed Saeed, we had, Everton was spared at that time. It wasn't, but it was dangerous. We didn't know what we could expect. But we opened, we were running the shops. And so the police had sent a whole lot of people from out of the area, policemen that came from all over the place. And we used to open the shops, and they said, but why don't you close your shops? So we said, no, we're not going to close. And we used to open then even till later. It used to get dark. And I remember these bloody policemen walking into the shop, and we had those generators where the lights were quite bright. And the guy would look at the shop, he says, "Mooi winkel, kom ons kry die mense aan brand." You know, they would actually agitate to have people burn our shops. That is how it was then, you know. It was crazy. But I also remember that regarding the unity we're talking about, the June 16 riots of 1976 was followed by many years of us closing on June 16. And it was, the government wouldn't allow that. You couldn't commemorate that day. All our businessmen closed. And I remember that on one occasion, the cops actually came home. They wanted to know, why did you close your shop? And I was then in Christiana that weekend. The cops wouldn't believe. And unfortunately, we had some of our own MPs that used to report us. So they were there, but they searched through the house. They went through the books. And so we had to go. When I got back from Christiana, I had to go to the security branch and go and report and explain to them where we were and why we closed the shop. You know, we said, no, we use kind of excuse, it's dangerous. But it was closed in solidarity of the movement then. Everton had played a big role, a commitment to the cause. Even when the UDF was formed, we were in the background of that. You know.
Actually, the June 16th riots in 76, none of our communities lost any, our Indian community lost any businesses. No. It was only in 84, but that was also agitated and it was pre-planned.
Well, the 84 riots, eventually it seems that it was all planned, it was designed, you know, and you know, in these things, the third force works, and you sacrifice some people to get to a point, and we believe that it wasn't the local community that spontaneously went that way. Obviously, when it went out of hand, everyone, you know, but I also remember that our shop was burning, it was bad. People came and stood there at the door and at the front, and then they wanted to help us to retrieve whatever we could. We landed up here in Roshnee, not homeless really, staying with family. And I remember people coming from Everton, African people coming from Everton, coming to console us. One gentleman, actually, one of the cars that we had on the premises was being repaired, and he came there and he said, "I want that car." It was still there. He says, "I want that car. When you fix it, I want that car. Here's the money." Knowing that we had lost everything, he said, "Here's the money. When you fix that car, I'll take that car from you." It was unbelievable, the kind of camaraderie you got from the people then.
I don't know if you had an encounter with special branch man by the name of Mr. Beckman.
Yes. Beckman. Yes. I also remember that time we were under that, the Oranjeval Administration Board. And we remember then those guys made our people's life miserable. Dayabai, Abdul Samad, Ismail and Mayat and them would, the white people were slowly leaving Everton, and there were those houses that were becoming vacant. So Dayabai said, "No, just take that house." He said, "No, but I can't take it." He said, "Just go and stay there and tell them you got this house." You know. And so we found that we took over a whole section of Everton.
Yes, a lot of people went to live in those houses. That's true. A lot of. If you remember, the Bhaga family moved into one of those white people's houses.
Yes. That was the whole street.
On the whole street there.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Uncle Rocky Kaji.
Uncle Rocky Kaji and
all of them. Yes.
And you remember, we were on our way back from Durban on the 3rd of September.
Yes.
When the riot started, and we didn't know what is happening, and then that's the time that everything.
Yes, I was fortunate to be with that delegation. What happened was we used to have our madrasa in Roshnee.
Bus from Everton to Roshnee.
That's right.
Yeah, and we had a problem with the bus service, so we went down from to Durban to the Indian Affairs that time to go and sort out the matter.
So I remember this very well. We went. It was a weekend, and the problem was that the kids, the madrasa kids, used to stay till 5 o'clock or 4:30 every day, and the bus had to take them back to Everton. So the department decided that the bus will not wait till 4:30. They will, after school, they will go back. We had to find our own way, which made it a big problem for us at the madrasa. So we then had to go. That time Indian Affairs offices were in Durban, and so we had to go. And I remember quite clearly, it was Uncle Abdul Samad, Uncle Abu, Uncle Abdullah Natti, Mohamed Patel, myself, and we went down. And the Monday we had this meeting, and at that meeting, those days no cell phones, there wasn't this control, but word got around that we had, and we were going to have protests that day. There were going to be protests that day. So we were aware of it. In fact, we were going to be closed that day. So, and that's one of the reasons why it suited us to go then. While we were there, we got word that things are happening in Everton, and some businesses now are beginning to burn. We then did some inquiries, and we heard that Musabai's shop, they started that side, and his shop is just about gone. Now, we're sitting together, we're wondering now, how do we tell him that, Anyway, we said, but when you go to Durban, you can't leave Durban unless you've been in the water. So we went, and we didn't have costumes, so we went to that riverside, Pick and Pay, we got some costumes, we went to swim, not knowing how bad things were. But when we got out, we went to eat at one of our family's houses, I think, and we heard then that things had really got bad, and we decided to get in the car, and we heard Musabai's shop was gone already, and we were now trying to console him, and I said, no, I'll drive. So I was driving, it was my father's car as well. So I said, I'll drive, and I drove some way. Musabai was down, he knew now his shop was gone. And then, before we even reached Maritzburg, he said, stop, stop, stop. So I stopped, he said, now whatever wants to happen will happen. I'm driving. And he drove, and it was time for Asr. We got to Maritzburg, we stopped, he said, if we miss Asr, it's like missing everything, your wealth and your family and everything. We're going to make Asr, irrespective. Those days, Salah was also sometimes we did by the by. We stopped, we made Asr, and he carried on driving. He insisted he's driving. And irrespective, he said, whatever happens, happens. There's nothing in our hands. There was this thing about fatality, fatal destiny. Whatever has to happen, had to happen. And that's what the Everton people were. I remember this a little light-hearted thing. We had this Hafizab, Shoti Hafiji. He had the shop, and he had his, in Everton, you had the shops, the goods lying right in front, and he was a soft man. He couldn't speak Afrikaans or English too well. So the people would come in the shop, and so he would buy, and they would. So he had his rolls of material. So a guy would walk in there, and he takes the rolls of material, and he starts running. So Hafizab was a bichara, but he chases after this guy. This guy now can't take it. He puts the material down, and he chases Hafizab. Hafizab turns around, and he goes back. As Hafizab, that guy stops to go and pick up the material. Hafizab turns after him again. He chases him again. It happened for a little while. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. We had also, what I think we should mention, we had one great personality now in Everton. Someone I think we probably haven't spoken enough about, Maulana Patel. He was a saint of another level, and unbelievable. I don't think we knew so much about the deen, but this man taught us a lot in terms of his faith and conviction on the deen. He was a man who was in meditation so many times.
I remember him very well. He was like a saint.
He was a saint.
I didn't know him closely, but when you just saw him, you could see the nur on his face. You could see the.
Why?
He was
glowing.
like a farishta.
It was glowing. It was shining.
Yes. And he just had the saintly look about him.
Yeah, and
I was fortunate to have him as a neighbor. And the day he passed away, we found him at Fajr time on the Musalla in Sajda.
He passed away in the Sajda, yes.
Yeah, I remember he used to stand outside Patel's, and then you stop and you speak to him. He says, Abu Bakar, umaru kaam karu, you taru kaam karwa ja.
Yeah. You know, you'd wonder what's he doing just on this. There was a big rock instead of
the big rock.
And he would stand, it was a massive rock, a boulder. And he would stand there and he would be praying all the time, making zikr. It was unbelievable, you know. And that's what he would say. You know?
Yeah, and then, the raps used to come. They said, who is that man? That man is a man of God. He's always with his beats.
So, yes. So, and then he had a son, Rashid Ahmad. Rashid Ahmad, he passed away recently. Rashid Ahmad Pila was a lover of cricket, and as I say, Pila, yes. They called him Pila, Rashid Ahmad Patel. And he wasn't the greatest of cricketers, but he would follow the game through and through, and he would be with every match that we played. He would write score, or he would even play. So the best he used to do, most of the time he was used as an umpire. Remember, we used to play cricket, and the batting team used to provide the umpire. And there wasn't that time, I mean, there are different things we did, you know. So I remember I'm batting at the non-striker's end, and the bowler bowls. It was a distinct sneak, got caught behind, and Pila says, not out, you know. On another occasion, he was umpire, our team was bowling, and the guy, the ball hit the pad. He said, how's it? He's umpire. He said, how's it? Out.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah.
And he used to know about cricket. I mean, he was like a dictionary in cricket. He used to know things that, they happened years ago, and he used to talk about it, and he used to give you details, who scored so much, and that's how we know about cricket.
Jazakallah.
Jazakallah for sharing all our